A simple woman kicked out of car dealership. Next day, her billionaire husband's Rolls-Royce arrives. Tyler stepped into the car dealership, her scarf wrapped tightly around her neck. The rows of shiny cars stretched before her, a world that felt so far from the life she had always known. She offered a polite smile to the salesman, but her heart was uneasy, a quiet tension she couldn't shake. People often saw her as quiet, simple, the kind of woman who never demanded attention. But beneath that calm exterior was a sharp mind, a strength she rarely revealed. Today, though, it felt as if no one noticed. As she lingered by the newest model, she felt a wave of uncertainty. Something about this visit didn't feel ordinary. Something about today felt like it could change everything. Before we dive into this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment. Your support helps bring more stories like this to life. Tyler's mornings always began quietly. She woke before sunrise, the house still wrapped in calm silence. She boiled water for tea, moving with a practiced grace that came from years of routine. Her small kitchen was simple, but everything had its place, kept with the kind of discipline that hinted she hadn't always lived an ordinary life. As she folded the laundry and arranged the bills on the table, her eyes lingered on a worn leather notebook tucked beneath a stack of papers. She touched it gently, almost protectively, before quickly sliding it back out of sight. No one knew about the skills she had once relied on. No one knew she wasn't as simple as she appeared. She tied her scarf, took a deep breath, and stepped outside, believing it would be just another normal day. She had no idea how wrong she was. As Tyler reached the dealership entrance, she noticed a group of employees gathered near the doorway. Their laughter softened the moment they saw her approaching. One of them, a young salesman with an overly confident smirk, folded his arms as if he'd already made up his mind about her. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone polite on the surface but sharp underneath. His eyes scanned her simple clothes, her worn bag, her modest scarf, judging, measuring, dismissing. Tyler felt the sting of his assumption, but she held her composure. She answered with a steady voice, choosing grace over confrontation. She had learned long ago that silence often revealed more than anger ever could. Still, a quiet tension settled in her chest. Something about this man's behavior felt like a warning, a small sign that the day ahead wouldn't be as simple as she hoped. At home, Emma's world was small but steady. It was just her and her mother in their modest apartment. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, and a kitchen that always smelled faintly of chamomile tea. Her mother worked double shifts at the clinic, leaving early and returning late, her tired smile the only warmth Emma could rely on. They loved each other deeply, but life's weight often left little room for long conversations or shared dinners. Most evenings, Emma studied alone at the kitchen table, the ticking clock her only companion. She didn't have siblings to confide in, no close friends to message late at night. Just silence, and a mother doing her best. It wasn't a broken home, just a quiet one. But sometimes, in that quiet, loneliness settled beside her like an old, familiar shadow. Inside the dealership, 2 more employees noticed Tyler. One was Mr. Collins, the senior manager, an older man with sharp eyes and a habit of pretending he was too busy to greet anyone who didn't look wealthy. He gave her a brief glance, then quietly whispered something to the young salesman who had greeted her earlier. Their quick exchange carried a tone Tyler recognized instantly, quiet judgment disguised as professionalism. Beside them stood Mia, a new trainee. Unlike the others, she looked uneasy. She watched Tyler with soft concern, as if she understood the unfairness unfolding but didn't yet have the courage to speak against it. Their reactions, cold, curious, hesitant, formed the first cracks in an atmosphere that was slowly turning hostile around her. Not long after Tyler stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. Mr. Collins, the senior manager, straightened his jacket and walked toward her with a slow, deliberate stride. His presence alone carried a silent message. He was in charge here, and everyone else followed his lead. He stopped in front of Tyler, his eyes scanning her from head to toe, searching for signs of worthiness. His smile was polite, but the stiffness in his tone exposed the truth. "We usually handle appointments first," he said, as if reminding her of an invisible rule she had already broken. The young salesman smirked behind him, clearly emboldened by the manager's attitude. Mia kept her head down, afraid to get involved. In that moment, Tyler understood the hierarchy perfectly. Mr. Collins wasn't just an employee. He was the gatekeeper of this place. And he had already decided she didn't belong here. Mr. Collins clasped his hands behind his back, giving Tyler a thin, practiced smile. "So," he said, "what exactly are you looking for today?" His tone carried a softness that wasn't kindness. More like someone speaking to a child who didn't understand the rules. Tyler kept her voice calm. "I just wanted to see the new model you have on display." The young salesman chuckled under his breath. "Ma'am, that car isn't affordable for everyone. Maybe we can show you something simpler." Tyler felt the heat rise in her chest, but she held her composure. "I didn't ask for something simpler. I asked to see that one." Mr. Collins raised an eyebrow, a hint of irritation flashing in his eyes. "We prefer serious buyers, Mississippi. Many people come in just to take photos and waste our time." His words weren't loud, but they carried the weight of judgment, meant to push her away, to remind her she didn't look like someone who belonged here. Tyler took a slow breath, steadying the storm rising inside her. Moments like these weren't new to her. She had faced harsher voices, colder rooms, and people far more intimidating than a dealership manager with an inflated ego. But the sting of judgment still cut deep. She reminded herself of the promise she once made, to never let others decide her worth. A promise born years ago from a life she no longer spoke about. A life filled with skills and experiences no one around her could ever imagine. Instead of arguing, she observed. She watched their expressions, their tone, their assumptions. Tyler knew that patience was its own kind of strength. And today, that strength would be tested again. Tyler stepped closer to the car, ignoring the doubtful looks around her. She traced her fingers lightly along the door handle, noticing the flawless shine, the slight warmth from the morning sun. Then she spoke, calmly, clearly. "This is the upgraded V12 model, isn't it? The one with the redesigned suspension system and the new hybrid torque setup." Mr. Collins blinked, caught off guard. The young salesman frowned, trying to hide his confusion. "How do you know that?" he asked, attempting a laugh that didn't land. Tyler simply smiled. "You learn things when you pay attention." She continued, pointing out small details, the stitching on the seats, the sound dampening changes, even the slight adjustment in wheelbase length that only someone knowledgeable would notice. Her tone stayed soft, almost casual, yet each observation landed like a quiet challenge. Mia stared at her with wide eyes, clearly impressed. But Mr. Collins stiffened. Instead of acknowledging her skill, he exchanged a look with the young salesman. One that said they didn't like being corrected by someone they'd already decided to underestimate. The room grew tense. Tyler had shown her competence, and they didn't appreciate it. For a moment, silence settled over the showroom. Tyler's knowledge had caught everyone off guard, and the employees didn't know how to react. Mia's eyes softened with admiration, as if she wished she had the courage to say something supportive. She stood a little taller, almost proud of Tyler's quiet confidence. But the others reacted differently. The young salesman's smile faded into a tight, uncomfortable line. He glanced at Mr. Collins, waiting for direction, almost afraid to challenge Tyler further on his own. Mr. Collins' expression, however, revealed everything. Surprise mixed with irritation. He didn't like being corrected. He didn't like losing control of the situation. And he definitely didn't like the idea that someone he had already judged as unimportant might know more than him. Their glances, whispers, and stiffened posture shifted the atmosphere. Tyler's calm display of competence had disturbed the balance, and the stage for a bigger confrontation was quietly being set. From across the showroom, Mia quietly observed Tyler. Unlike the others, she didn't judge. Instead, she noticed the confidence in Tyler's movements, the precision in her words, and the way she quietly commanded attention without raising her voice. Mia's lips pressed together in admiration. She had seen arrogance and ignorance in this place before, but Tyler's calm competence was different. It wasn't about showing off. It was about knowing what she knew and letting it speak for itself. A small spark of respect lit in Mia's eyes, hinting that one day, someone would recognize Tyler not just for her appearance, but for the intelligence and strength she carried beneath the surface. Mr. Collins straightened his tie, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Impressive," he said, voice smooth but edged with condescension. "But knowing facts isn't the same as understanding people or sales." He walked over to the car and began explaining its features, deliberately exaggerating, adding technical details with a practiced flourish. The employees leaned in, nodding and murmuring agreement, their eyes now on him, hanging on every word. "Precision is important," he said, "but presentation is everything. And a true buyer doesn't just notice parts, they notice how you make them feel." He paused, glancing at Tyler. "Some of us have learned that the hard way." Tyler listened quietly, maintaining her calm, but her pulse quickened. The words were subtle, but the meaning clear. He intended to remind her, and everyone else, that he was in charge here. The room shifted under his overconfidence. Yet beneath the arrogance, Tyler sensed a hint of insecurity, a small crack in the armor he was so desperate to display. Tyler took a slow breath, letting the tension in the room settle around her. She felt the weight of Mr. Collins' gaze, the murmurs of the employees, and the subtle judgment in every glance, but she didn't let it shake her. Instead, she assessed everything quietly. The room, the reactions, the small details in how the manager positioned himself, the way the young salesman's arrogance faltered under her calm. Each piece of the puzzle was clear to her, a map of the challenge ahead. She straightened her posture and smoothed her scarf, not for appearance, but as a grounding ritual. Mentally, she rehearsed her approach, reminding herself that knowledge, patience, and quiet confidence could speak louder than anger or arrogance. Tyler was ready. She knew the next moments would test her, and she intended to meet that test without flinching. Mr. Collins' smirk deepened as he turned to Tyler. "If you really understand this car," he said, voice smooth and measured, "then you'll handle a small test for me. Show me you could sell it to a client who knows every detail already. Convince them in 10 minutes. Otherwise." He let the threat hang, unspoken but clear. The employees exchanged glances, some hiding smirks, others clearly anticipating her failure. Mia shifted uncomfortably, sensing the pressure mounting. Tyler's heart beat steadily, but her face remained calm. She knew this was meant to embarrass her, to expose her as unworthy. The task seemed impossible, not just because of the time limit, but because it challenged her in front of a room full of skeptics who already doubted her. Yet, beneath the tension, Tyler felt a quiet spark. She had faced harder challenges before, and she had no intention of letting anyone, least of all Mr. Collins, undermine her competence. Tyler took a deep breath, feeling the slight chill of the morning air brushing against her face. Her fingers brushed the edge of the car door, tracing its smooth surface as if drawing strength from its solidity. The room seemed to hold its collective breath. She noticed the faint tapping of the young salesman's foot, the quiet shuffle of papers on a nearby counter, the barely perceptible rise and fall of Mr. Collins' chest. Each detail sharpened her awareness. The tension was palpable, pressing against her chest, but she remained steady, letting her thoughts align with the rhythm of the room. Every sound, every movement, every small reaction became part of her preparation. Time slowed, anticipation building, both for the employees waiting to see her fail and for Tyler herself, poised to prove them wrong. Tyler stepped forward with quiet confidence, her voice calm and measured. She began explaining the car's features, highlighting the technical upgrades and the subtle improvements that most clients overlooked. Her knowledge was precise, her words deliberate, yet natural, as if she had spoken about this car 100 times before. The employees exchanged glances, their surprise barely concealed. Even Mr. Collins' smirk faltered, though he quickly masked it with a polite nod. Still, skepticism lingered in the room. The young salesman whispered to a colleague, questioning her authority. Mia, however, watched with admiration, a small smile tugging at her lips. Tyler had performed well, but she knew it wasn't enough. She had earned attention but not respect. Yet, the challenge was far from over, and the real test was still ahead. Whispers spread through the employees like a quiet breeze, each comment carrying judgment. "She's good for a beginner," one muttered, a sly grin tugging at his lips. The young salesman chuckled, shaking his head. "I've seen clients who know less than this, and they still struggle. She's lucky to get that far." Mia's eyes narrowed, her unease visible, but she stayed silent. Even Mr. Collins' polite mask couldn't hide the faint smirk. He leaned slightly forward, as if to assert dominance, his words unnecessary, their collective judgment already filling the room. Tyler felt their underestimation like a weight pressing against her, but she remained calm. Their mockery would only fuel her focus. Tyler felt the weight of their whispers, the undercurrent of doubt pressing in from every side. Yet, instead of faltering, she closed her eyes briefly, letting her thoughts settle. She traced the sequence of the next steps in her mind, recalling the countless situations where she had faced skepticism and still emerged unshaken. Her past, one she rarely spoke of, had taught her patience, observation, and quiet strategy. She didn't need to prove herself to anyone here. She only needed to execute, to let competence speak louder than arrogance. Opening her eyes, she scanned the room once more. The smirks, the doubtful glances, the subtle hierarchy. They all became part of her assessment. Tyler's calm resolve was not just strength. It was preparation. She knew the next move would define everything. Mr. Collins' eyes narrowed as he leaned slightly forward. "Very well," he said, his tone deceptively calm. "Now, imagine a client who's hesitant, someone who doubts every detail you mention. Convince them to take the car today. 10 minutes, no exceptions." The employees stiffened, sensing the escalation. Whispers rippled across the room, some brimming with doubt, others with quiet anticipation. Mia's eyes met Tyler's, silently urging her to rise to the challenge. Tyler's pulse remained steady. She understood the stakes. This wasn't just about technical knowledge anymore. It was about perception, about patience, and about navigating the subtle power dynamics Mr. Collins wielded so effortlessly. As she approached the car again, she felt the weight of every judgmental gaze. The challenge was harder, the pressure heavier, yet her focus sharpened. Every detail, every word, every movement mattered now. The room seemed to shrink, and Tyler's calm determination radiated, quietly daring anyone to underestimate her again. Tyler stepped closer to the car, her movements calm and deliberate. She spoke with quiet authority, explaining every feature, anticipating questions before they were asked. She highlighted the car's technical advantages, linked them to practical benefits, and wove in subtle storytelling that made each detail resonate. The employees watched, their initial smirks fading. Mr. Collins' expression stiffened, a flicker of surprise crossing his face as Tyler seamlessly addressed objections he hadn't expected her to anticipate. Even the young salesman's whispers died on his lips, replaced by astonished silence. Mia's eyes widened, admiration shining through as she realized Tyler wasn't just competent. She was exceptional. Tyler's calm precision left no room for doubt. Each word, each gesture, each insight displayed mastery without arrogance. Slowly, the room shifted. Skepticism gave way to recognition. For the first time, they weren't just observing a visitor. They were witnessing someone whose skill and presence could not be ignored. Mr. Collins felt a prickling unease as Tyler continued to speak, her knowledge precise, her confidence undeniable. Every word she delivered subtly undermined the authority he had long relied upon. The smirk that had once rested comfortably on his lips wavered, replaced by a thin line of tension. He glanced at the young salesman, hoping for an ally, but found only blank expressions and quiet astonishment. Even Mia's admiration was impossible to ignore, a silent reminder that Tyler's skill commanded respect without seeking it. Mr. Collins took a shallow breath, forcing a composed nod, but inside, his ego bristled. He had been challenged, exposed to the uncomfortable truth that someone he had underestimated could surpass him effortlessly. For the first time that day, his confidence faltered. The room seemed to tilt slightly, the balance of power shifting in ways he hadn't anticipated, and Tyler remained calm, fully aware of the subtle victory she had begun to claim. The employees exchanged subtle glances, their earlier confidence replaced by quiet uncertainty. Whispers faded into thoughtful silence as they realized Tyler's knowledge wasn't luck or coincidence. It was skill, experience, and careful observation. Mia's eyes softened with admiration, her small smile betraying the respect she had long withheld. Even the young salesman, previously smug and dismissive, seemed to shrink back, reassessing not just Tyler's competence, but the assumptions he had made about her. The room's energy shifted imperceptibly. Tyler hadn't demanded recognition, yet she earned it effortlessly, simply by being herself, calm, knowledgeable, and unshakably confident. For the first time, the observers understood. Underestimating her had been a mistake, and their previous judgments no longer held weight. Mr. Collins' eyes narrowed, his composure slipping further. "Impressive," he said, voice tight. "But knowledge alone doesn't win a client. Let's make this interesting. Imagine a buyer who's not just hesitant, they're skeptical, critical, and easily frustrated. Convince them in 5 minutes or the deal is lost. Can you handle that?" The employees stiffened, sensing the escalation. Whispers of doubt filled the room again, but Tyler remained steady, her calm undisturbed. She understood the challenge wasn't just technical. It was emotional, psychological, a test of composure under pressure. Her heart beat evenly, her mind already mapping the strategy. She observed Mr. Collins' subtle cues, the way he anticipated reactions, the hierarchy he wielded as a tool. Tyler's focus sharpened. She had faced higher stakes before, though none so public. This was the ultimate test of patience, skill, and quiet authority, and she was ready to rise to it. Tyler inhaled slowly, centering herself. Every word, every gesture, every glance was deliberate. She approached the car again, speaking softly but with authority, highlighting the technical features in a way that connected directly to the client's imagined concerns. Her hands moved with precision, pointing to details most would overlook. The subtle improvements in the suspension, the refined stitching, the quiet engineering adjustments that made the car exceptional. Her tone remained steady, almost soothing, yet impossible to ignore. The employees leaned in involuntarily, drawn by her composure. Even Mr. Collins' sharp eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt, a crack in his overconfidence. Tyler's methodical approach transformed tension into clarity. She didn't rush. She didn't need to. Every calculated move demonstrated mastery, patience, and quiet authority, leaving no room for skepticism, and slowly, the room began to recognize the depth of her skill. Just as Tyler finished her explanation, a sudden gust of wind swept through the open showroom doors, rustling papers on the counter. The young salesman reached to steady them, but his awkward motion drew a stifled laugh from one of the other employees. "Careful," Mr. Collins muttered under his breath, his irritation barely hidden. For a brief second, the atmosphere wavered, a reminder that perfection was fragile, even in a controlled environment. Tyler's focus didn't falter. She adjusted smoothly, letting her presence steady the moment, and in doing so, reinforced her authority without a word. The room collectively held its breath again, realizing that even minor disruptions couldn't shake her. The room fell into a hushed silence. Tyler's calm authority and precise knowledge had left the employees momentarily speechless. Whispers began to ripple quietly, filled with awe and disbelief. Mia's eyes shone with admiration, her quiet smile reflecting the respect she had long withheld. Even the young salesman, who had smirked and whispered doubts earlier, now stared at Tyler with cautious acknowledgement, as if realizing he had misjudged her entirely. Mr. Collins' composure wavered, a tight line forming around his lips. Though he attempted to maintain control, the subtle shock in his eyes betrayed his awareness. Tyler had not only met the challenge, she had surpassed it. The energy in the room shifted imperceptibly. What had begun as underestimation and mockery now morphed into quiet respect, as everyone slowly recognized the depth of skill, patience, and quiet power she carried effortlessly. Mr. Collins cleared his throat, straightening his jacket as if to reclaim authority. "Well," he said, forcing a controlled smile. "Impressive work, but let's not forget who's in charge here." His voice carried a practiced calm, but the slight quiver betrayed the irritation he was trying to hide. The employees exchanged glances, sensing the subtle struggle for dominance. The young salesman whispered under his breath, attempting to regain some of the confidence he had lost earlier. Mr. Collins stepped closer to the car, pointing out features with exaggerated precision, trying to overshadow Tyler's earlier demonstration. Yet each word felt forced, his overconfidence thinly veiling the realization that she had already proven herself. Tyler remained composed, her calm unwavering. She didn't need to respond immediately. Every gesture, every carefully measured move she had made, now spoke louder than words ever could. The room's tension grew, an invisible tug-of-war between ego and mastery, waiting for the next decisive moment. Tyler took a deep, steadying breath and moved with quiet precision. Every explanation was deliberate, every gesture purposeful. She addressed the imagined skeptical client flawlessly, anticipating objections before they even arose. Her words flowed naturally, connecting technical knowledge with subtle persuasion that left no room for doubt. The employees watched in stunned silence. Whispers died in their throats, and even the young salesman's earlier arrogance melted into wide-eyed astonishment. Mia's admiration deepened, her soft gasp betraying the respect that had grown steadily since the first challenge. Mr. Collins' composure faltered again. His overconfidence, so carefully maintained, now seemed almost fragile. Every move Tyler made quietly undermined his attempts to reassert authority. By the end, the room was still. The audience wasn't applauding aloud, but the shift in energy was unmistakable. Tyler hadn't just completed the task. She had mastered it, and everyone present, even those who doubted her most, felt the undeniable weight of her skill. For a heartbeat, the room fell completely silent. Tyler's calm, flawless execution had left everyone suspended in awe, the weight of her skill settling over the showroom like a quiet tide. No one spoke, no one moved. Even the usual murmurs of judgment were gone, replaced by a reflective stillness. Mia's eyes glistened with admiration, the young salesman's jaw tightened, and Mr. Collins' polite mask slipped for just a moment, revealing a flicker of reluctant respect. Tyler stood quietly, her own breathing steady, absorbing the moment. She didn't need to claim victory aloud. The acknowledgement was already there, palpable in the stunned reactions around her. The tension that had built over hours melted into this single, powerful pause. The room wasn't just impressed. It was humbled, silently recognizing the mastery, patience, and quiet authority she had carried all along. Tyler stepped back, letting the quiet in the room settle around her. For a moment, she allowed herself a small, private smile. Years of training, experience, and discipline, skills she rarely spoke of, had guided her through this challenge effortlessly. Mia's gaze lingered on her, curious and admiring. "You've handled yourself like someone trained," she murmured softly. Tyler's lips curved in a faint, knowing smile. She didn't deny it, but she didn't elaborate. Some things were meant to remain private. The employees, still reeling from the demonstration, began to sense that her calm authority wasn't just confidence. It was the product of a life forged under pressure, a past where precision, strategy, and patience weren't optional, but necessary. Even Mr. Collins, still attempting to mask his irritation, now held a new wariness in his eyes. Tyler had revealed just enough. Her ordinary appearance belied a history of skill and experience that few could match, and everyone present knew, instinctively, that underestimating her had been a grave mistake. The room buzzed softly with a mix of shock and newfound respect. Whispers of admiration threaded through the employees, their earlier smirks replaced by hesitant acknowledgement. Even the young salesman avoided Tyler's gaze, a faint flush betraying his regret for underestimating her. Mia's quiet smile reflected awe and admiration, silently celebrating the skill she had witnessed firsthand. Mr. Collins, though maintaining a composed exterior, let a subtle sigh escape, betraying the realization that his judgment had been flawed. The energy shifted completely. What had begun as doubt and mockery transformed into recognition. Silent, begrudging, yet undeniable. Tyler hadn't just met the challenge. She had reshaped everyone's perception, leaving them to process the weight of her competence, patience, and quiet authority. Mr. Collins stood still, his usual confidence shaken. Inside, a subtle storm brewed, a mix of irritation, disbelief, and begrudging respect. He had underestimated Tyler, and the realization pressed uncomfortably against his pride. For the first time that day, he reflected on his own behavior, the assumptions he had made, the smug remarks, the quiet dismissals. Each thought weighed heavily, highlighting the gap between appearance and ability, between arrogance and true skill. He straightened his tie, forcing a composed exterior, but the bruised ego lingered beneath. Tyler hadn't just succeeded. She had revealed the limits of his judgment, leaving him with no choice but to reckon with the uncomfortable truth. In that moment, Mr. Collins understood something important. Respect wasn't demanded, it was earned, and he had been slow to recognize it. Mia stepped closer, her eyes soft with admiration. She offered a small, almost imperceptible nod, a silent acknowledgement of Tyler's skill and composure. "No one else would have handled it like that," she whispered under her breath, just loud enough for Tyler to hear. Tyler's lips curved in a faint, grateful smile, understanding the weight of that simple gesture. It wasn't applause or words of praise. It was quiet recognition from someone who truly understood. In that small moment, Tyler felt the affirmation she hadn't sought but deeply appreciated. The respect from a perceptive observer, subtle and genuine, carried more meaning than any loud acknowledgement ever could. As the room slowly returned to its normal rhythm, Tyler allowed herself a quiet breath. She reflected on the subtle victories of the day, not in proving others wrong, but in staying true to herself. Strength, patience, and knowledge were silent allies she had relied on long before anyone else could understand. She thought of the years that had shaped her, the discipline, the challenges, the quiet resilience that had become second nature. Life had taught her that respect and recognition weren't demanded. They were earned through calm determination and unshakable integrity. Tyler's eyes softened, her mind at ease. Today had been more than a test of skill. It was a reminder that confidence rooted in substance always outshines superficial judgments. In her quiet reflection, she understood a truth that few acknowledged. Real strength speaks softly, but its echo lasts forever. Mia leaned against the counter, her thoughts quietly turning over the events of the day. She realized how easily she and everyone else had underestimated Tyler, judging her by appearance rather than substance. Even the young salesman's earlier smugness now seemed foolish in hindsight. He avoided eye contact, a flush creeping across his face as the truth sank in. Tyler's skill and composure had far exceeded anyone's expectations. The room, once filled with quiet mockery and doubt, now hummed with respect and astonishment. Mia's soft smile reflected understanding and humility. Assumptions had been challenged, perceptions had shifted, and she, along with the others, recognized that underestimating someone like Tyler was not just unfair. It was a mistake they would not soon forget. Tyler faced the final challenge with unwavering calm. The imagined client was skeptical, demanding, and critical, testing not just her knowledge, but her patience, strategy, and composure. Every detail mattered: technical explanations, subtle persuasion, and timing of each word. She spoke deliberately, weaving precision with clarity. Each feature of the car was presented flawlessly, anticipating objections before they surfaced. Her gestures were measured, her voice steady, and her presence commanding without arrogance. The employees watched in rapt silence, the tension in the room almost tangible. Even Mr. Collins leaned forward slightly, his confidence strained as he realized Tyler wasn't just competent. She was extraordinary. Time seemed to stretch as Tyler navigated the final moments, her strategy seamless, her skill undeniable. When she concluded, the room exhaled collectively, stunned by the quiet perfection of her execution. Tyler had met the highest challenge, leaving no doubt of her mastery, her patience, and her quiet, unshakable authority. For a long, suspended moment, the room remained utterly still. Tyler's flawless execution had left everyone breathless, the weight of her skill and composure hanging palpably in the air. No one spoke, no one moved. The earlier tension, the whispers of doubt, the subtle mockery, all dissolved into silence. Even the young salesman's mouth opened slightly, but no words came. Mia's eyes glistened with admiration, reflecting the quiet awe shared by all present. Mr. Collins' jaw tightened, a flash of reluctant respect crossing his features, though he kept his posture rigid. The room collectively exhaled, the tension finally breaking like a tide receding from the shore. In that cinematic pause, everyone felt the truth of what had occurred. Tyler hadn't just completed a challenge. She had commanded it with precision, patience, and an unshakable quiet authority, leaving an indelible impression on everyone present. As the showroom slowly regained its rhythm, Tyler allowed herself a quiet reflection. She had rarely spoken of her past, but today it whispered through every calm movement and precise word. Years of military training had honed her patience, discipline, and strategic thinking. Every challenge she faced had been shaped by experiences where precision and composure weren't just valuable, they were necessary for survival. Before this day, she had led teams, executed complex operations, and mastered skills that few could comprehend. Her knowledge of technical systems, her ability to assess people instantly, and her unshakable calm all traced back to that hidden life. The employees, oblivious to the full depth at first, now sensed it. Tyler's seemingly ordinary appearance belied extraordinary expertise. Even Mr. Collins, finally absorbing the reality, realized that the quiet woman he had underestimated possessed a lifetime of mastery. Skills forged under pressure, tested repeatedly, and now displayed flawlessly before them all. Tyler had never needed to boast. Her actions had spoken louder than any words could. Mr. Collins exhaled slowly, straightening his posture as if releasing the weight of his earlier arrogance. The challenge had exposed his misjudgment, yet it also offered a lesson he hadn't anticipated. He met Tyler's calm gaze, a subtle nod acknowledging her mastery. No words were needed. The quiet respect was unmistakable. In that small gesture, the unspoken understanding passed between them. Authority and skill were not defined by appearances, and underestimating someone could lead to humbling consequences. The young salesman shifted uneasily, catching the nuance, while Mia's quiet smile mirrored the room's new awareness. Tyler didn't seek validation, yet the acknowledgement felt genuine, earned not through demand but through action and presence. In that moment, the hierarchy shifted, not with confrontation, but with quiet recognition. Mr. Collins' ego had been balanced, his understanding deepened, and the lesson of humility, respect, and true skill had been firmly learned. Tyler straightened her scarf and took a quiet step back from the car. She offered a gentle, composed smile to the room, acknowledging the stunned silence without arrogance. Slowly, she turned and walked toward the exit, each movement graceful and measured, as if the tension she had carried all day simply dissolved behind her. The employees watched in awe, their earlier skepticism replaced by lingering admiration. Mia's soft nod reflected the respect that had grown steadily since the first challenge. Even Mr. Collins, still adjusting his posture, observed silently, the lessons of humility and recognition etched into his expression. Though the doors closed behind Tyler, her presence lingered, leaving an unspoken mark on everyone in the room. Conversations remained hushed, glances exchanged, and the subtle shift in energy remained palpable. Her departure didn't need fanfare. Her mastery, calm, and quiet authority had spoken louder than words ever could, leaving a lasting impression that would not soon be forgotten. As Tyler's footsteps faded, the lesson of the day settled quietly in the minds of everyone present. True strength isn't loud or demanding. It is measured, patient, and grounded in skill and integrity. Judgment based on appearances is often flawed, and underestimating someone can blind us to the quiet power they carry. Life, she reflected internally, rewards preparation, resilience, and the courage to remain composed under pressure. Respect is earned, not assumed, and true mastery shows itself not in boasting, but in calm, deliberate action. The employees, the young salesman, even Mr. Collins, were left to ponder the subtle but undeniable truth. Competence and character are revealed through deeds, not appearances. Tyler's quiet authority had reshaped perceptions, leaving an enduring reminder that patience, knowledge, and integrity always speak louder than arrogance. And as the doors closed behind her, the room held a quiet truth. Strength need not announce itself, and brilliance often walks softly, leaving echoes that linger long after the world thinks it has moved on.